Hello YouTube, Born to be Wild NE here, and as always, NE stands for Nebraska. Go Big Red Huskers. Hey, this is a short vid that's going to be added to my political and social commentary playlist. So if you're not interested, just pause and stop it now and move on to something else. Forewarned is fair play, I guess, eh? It's Monday, January 7th, 2019, and parts of our federal government have been closed. It's in its third week now of closure, and I know the issue is a quote, the wall, end quote, and there are passions on both sides of that issue and everywhere along the spectrum in between. But I just want to share my thoughts. There are 800,000 around workers and their families who are being negatively impacted by this shutdown. And the shutdown is over some partial funding for, quote, the wall, end quote. To me, that's immoral, that we are hurting 800,000 of our own citizens and their families fighting over that issue. The government should be immediately reopened. Then both sides in Congress should engage in genuine give and take negotiations to do two things and two things only. Just don't expand it into some big huge thing that's going to tear people off of supporting it. Let's define and fund smart and effective enhancements to our border security, and let's provide permanent residency status and a pathway to citizenship to the DACA folk. We need to find a way to get away from all this emotional garbage about the words, quote, the wall, end quote. There are so many people who don't understand that currently over half of the illegal drugs that come into our country across the southern border come in via tunnels, and actually more of it comes through existing legal and managed ports of entry. Driving across in vehicles, driving right past border checkpoints. The wall's not going to do anything for those two root causes. And they are the majority of how illegal drugs get into our country across the southern border. The second fact that people don't either know about or take time to think about is it's an estimated 40% of the people who are in our country currently illegally came in legally with current legal visas, and they overstayed those visas, and thus they're here illegally. These folk come from all over the world. A wall will do nothing for that root cause. So, in my opinion, we need to understand where the problems are, figure out where and what the best way is to solve those problems, and then fund those actions. Read it. I'm done. In some places along our border, a wall, be it concrete or steel, will make sense. We already know that there are sections where there exists a wall, and they were the best things to do and put in those sections. But the idea that we need a wall everywhere along the southern border is goofy. It's a waste of time and money. Think about the northern border. Think about our coastline. Huge amounts of coastline on both coasts and in the Gulf. So, if bad people want to get in to our country to do bad things, they sure as heck don't need to cross the southern border to do it. I've written my members of Congress, my representatives, and told them what I think about this. That we need to stop hurting Americans. It's immoral to hurt Americans. And then some people get in these arguments, oh, it's the Democrats' fault, or it's Trump's fault, or whatever. It's immoral to hurt 800,000 Americans and their families. Open the government completely. Then, in my opinion, Trump needs to understand that he's no longer going to be able to bully his way through to whatever he wants. The Democrats have control over the House of Representatives, at least for the next 2 years. Trump is going to have to understand that he's going to have to negotiate, and the Democrats and the Republicans are going to have to negotiate. That means give and take, that means compromise, and that effort should be focused around what are the smart things that are needed and how do we fund them and make them happen. It's a huge effort. There's a whole lot of stuff I bet that both parties could agree on and start phasing in the stuff. You don't have to approve everything to start making progress. Smart and effective progress. I get really riled up. And my own personal opinion is it's Mr. Trump. He thinks he can get whatever he wants, and it's almost like he doesn't really care about solving the problem. He wants it to be an open sore between the parties, between himself and his supporters and the rest of America. I think that's dumb. I think it's immature. I think it's stupid. I think it's ineffective. Our border security needs to be enhanced. I'll bet you a huge majority of Americans would agree with that if they knew that there was going to be a smart, and effective approach to understanding what various segments of the border need in the way of enhanced border security. Getting away from this idea of a wall. What about visa overstays? What about tunnels under a wall? What about all the traffic, and this is the biggest thing for illegal drugs coming, driving right through existing ports of entry? We don't have the capabilities right now to screen and scan all the vehicular traffic that goes each way across the border. I think I saw a statistic, something like 16% of the traffic gets scanned and checked. You can't hold up the traffic. You got to come up with technology that and the throughput capacity that will allow us to be more effective in scanning and scan more. A drug kingpin probably says, if I lose 16% of what I send through, no big deal. I just count that as a business loss, cost of doing business, and I'll make it up some other way. This should not be an emotional me against you, or you against me, or us against them type of thing. We are hurting our own great country when we allow the discourse to be so coarse and negative and non-productive, ineffective. I suggest everybody contact all their members of Congress, their 2 senators and their 1 person in the House of Representatives, regardless of party, and tell them exactly what I've said. Open the darn government. Do it, and do it now. Then start genuine give and take negotiations aimed at identifying what the smart and effective needs are in various segments of our border, and then figure out how to fund it. And that can be done in phases. Prioritize the biggest segment, the needs segments with the biggest priority first in assessing and funding. And I think the second thing that needs to be done in conjunction with that is positive outcomes for the DACA folk. We can solve 2 big issues in one action. If we start bringing in chain migration or, merit, immigration by merit, and all that. I mean, I'm not... Okay, those are issues to be debated, but as you start complicating it, you tend to lose support by these 3 people and those 4 people, and so we lose our focus on the 2 things that need to be done, the 2 big things that need to be done. Mr. Trump had an agreement in principle in early 2017 to do exactly what I've said. In fact, it was $25 billion for enhanced border security and permanent, positive resolution for the DACA folk. There was an agreement in principle between the Dems and Trump. But he couldn't let that stand. He had to, after the agreement in principle, say, okay, I want chain migration, I want immigration by merit, blah, 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 blah. So he started chipping away and trying, and I don't blame anybody. I would feel like, oh, you're bullying me. You're trying to bully me. And bullying isn't the way to run a government. The Founding Fathers defined a pretty complex and complicated way of making laws in our country. And bullying is not one of them. And the Republicans and Mr. Trump had better come to grips with the fact they're not going to be able to do that with the Dems having control of the House of Representatives for at least the next 2 years. Oh, well, we'll do our political calculus and, we'll try to blah, 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 blah. Fix the problems. Fix them in smart ways. Fix them now. Don't try to figure out, well, if I do this and this, I'd have a chance of gaining political advantage, and then I might get more of what I want. Holy mackerel, people. Put the country ahead of yourself and of your party. Do it. Do it now. As the Nike commercial said, just do it. Take care, y'all.